Hey guys, Pete here. Today I'm picking up on my two-part timeline video for Netflix's Dark. In part 1 I covered the story in chronological order up until the year 1987. In this video we'll cover everything that's happened through Season 2 from 2019 through 2053. I'll put a link at the top for the part 1 video if you want to watch them in order, but really it's up to you. If you haven't watched Season 2 yet, this will contain massive spoilers, so you don't want to watch this video before you watch the actual season. There's a lot to cover here, so let's jump right in. Season 2 of Dark is set up to be in chronological order in the days leading up to the apocalypse in 2020, except for episode number 6, which is where we start. That episode takes place on June 20th, the day before Michael commits suicide. On June 20th, 2019, the day starts with the original Jonas having breakfast with Michael. We see Jonas grab the yellow rain jacket and Michael has a deja vu moment. After that, young Jonas, Magnus, Martha, and Bartosz go to the lake. We find out that Katarina and Ulrich are throwing their 25th wedding anniversary party. Hannah asks Michael to go with her, but he declines. Younger Jonas finds the St. Christopher medallion in the sand, and then he leaves because he has to go see his grandmother. At that point, younger Jonas from the future arrives from 1921, and he ends up kissing Marta at the beach. Younger Magnus sees younger Franziska skinny dipping at the lake, and that's where he starts to have feelings for her. Back at the Nielsens, we see that Mikkel has rubella, so they have to take him to the doctor. On the way, they stop at Hannah's house, and Mikkel sees adult Michael, and it's a weird situation where Mikkel ends up running away. Adult Alexander Tiedemann sees an article about the unsolved Marburg murders. Later that day, he contacts Voller for help in finding something for him on the phone. Original young Jonas goes to the anniversary party with his mom, Hannah. Marta gives him the St. Christopher medallion necklace that she made for him. After that, Jonas and Marta have sex together for the first time. At the party, Ulrich and Hannah get together, and some people think that this is when their affair starts, and other people think it may have happened before that, or it started before that. It's not really clear. Future younger Jonas finds Michael at the house. He pleads with him not to kill himself, and he shows him the suicide letter. Michael reveals to Jonas that it was a future version of him that actually took him through the passage back to 1986 on the night that he originally disappeared. At that point, older Claudia comes in, she interrupts them, and tells Jonas he must go against Adam, which is himself, obviously, and that she's actually seen a world where Jonas doesn't exist, and it's not what Jonas right now expects. She goes on to say that they all have to make sacrifices, and that would include Michael, and that he needs to take his own life. Later, Michael does write the suicide letter. Teen Jonas goes to the caves, and this is the beginning of where they spent their year together, where he was being trained. He goes back to 1987. On June 21st, Michael does hang himself and leaves behind the letter with instructions that it shouldn't be read until November 4th at 10:13 p.m. At some point after that happens, Jonas goes and spends 2 months in a psychiatric facility while everyone else thinks he just went to France, thanks to Bartosz telling them that. Fast forward to October 22nd, that's the day that Eric goes missing, and we know that he was kidnapped by adult Helga. Fast forward again to November 4th, and we see Helga arrive from 1986 again. We get the idea that he's going back and forth. Younger Jonas goes back to school for the first time, and while he's there, he finds out that Marta and Bartosz are dating now. Older Inez reads the letter from Michael after 10:13 p.m. that evening. At the same time, Jonas, Marta, Bartosz, Magnus, Mikkel, and Franziska go to the caves. This is where the whole thing goes down. Mikkel goes missing. He ends up being transported through the caves after being shown the way by a future version of younger Jonas. Of course, he's with one Jonas, they get split up, and the other one swoops in and takes him through the cave. Similar to the situation we saw where there's a Jonas switch at the beach, and the second one is the one that gives Marta the kiss. Adult Regina also finds out that the hotel is going to be forced to close down due to not making enough money. They're having some kind of financial trouble. Peter sees Mad's body appear in the bunker, and then he calls Tronta, and they have to take care of it. They find this out because older Claudia shows up and tells them to get rid of the body and gives them the leather-bound notebook. The next day, on November 5th, Mad's body is found in the forest. Charlotte and Ulrich realize it's not Mikkel, but they don't know who it is at this point. On the same day, Ulrich finds the door to the power plant in the caves. At the same time, stranger age or adult Jonas shows up in Winden, and he goes and gets a room at Regina's hotel. We see Helga emerge from the caves again on this day as well. Younger Jonas finds Mikkel's map of the caves in his studio, and later in that same day, Alexander orders the radioactive waste barrels to be dug up and moved somewhere else. On November 6th, younger Jonas starts exploring the caves now that he has the map. Charlotte finds the bunker as she's looking into the case of Mikkel's disappearance and Mad's body showing up. Younger Elizabeth meets adult Noah. It happens off screen, but she returns home with a pocket watch that he gave her to give to Charlotte. The next day, November 7th, Yasin is kidnapped by Helga. Jonas and Marta share a kiss backstage after her play when he blew off Bartosz to go see it. When he gets back home, he receives the package from older Jonas and he reads his father's letter, learning that Mikkel's true identity is that he was Mikkel who traveled back. On November 8th, adult Regina is diagnosed with breast cancer. As he's going through the evidence, Ulrich realizes the dead boy from the forest is actually his brother Mads from 1986. The next day on November 9th, Ulrich goes and confronts older Helga for the first time at the hospital. This leads Charlotte to suspending him from the case, giving him some time off more or less. Katerina then tells him that she knows about the affair with Hannah. And on this same day, older Jana tells Ulrich that she saw Helga in 2019. She remembers him from the past and says that he hasn't aged. After that, Ulrich follows older Helga into the caves. He sees him walking, so he follows along, ends up in the caves. Younger Jonas arrives back from 1986. 2 days later, on November 11th, older Claudia visits Bartosz and asks him to give Regina a photo of the two of them from 1986. Hannah uses the passport from Boris Niewald to blackmail Alexander. She wants him to destroy Ulrich's life. Regina finally goes into the hotel room that older Jonas had rented, and she sees all the files and paperwork related to the time travel. Later that night, Bartosz agrees to work with Noah to help Noah. Older Jonas takes some of the radioactive waste, the stuff that fuels the time machine, out of the barrels in the truck. And then later, Jonas tells Marta that they can't be together. It isn't going to work. On November 12th, younger Jonas confronts his grandmother, Inez, about Mikkel's true identity. He then has a fight with Bartosz outside the school. Charlotte is digging through some information and she runs into Ulrich's photo in a newspaper from 1953. Noah gives Bartosz the notebook and he warns him to never trust Claudia. Charlotte runs into Peter in the bunker. Then the time portal opens over Winden. We see all the different effects on the electricity and people are experiencing it, but nothing actually happens of note in 2019. And that is the last thing that happens in that year. Moving on to 2020, on June 21st, Clausen takes over the missing persons case, and later we find out that he actually requested the position. Katerina is exploring the caves. She's trying to figure out where Ulrich went. We see Bartosz and Martha meet under the bridge to break up. They decide not to see each other anymore. Hannah is about to kill herself, but then older Jonas, the stranger, shows up. That puts an end to that plan. Marta finds all of Ulrich's police files in Mikkel's room, and she shows them to Magnus. Younger Elizabeth finds a photo of Noah in an old book at H.G. Tannhaus's shop. She explains to Peter that that's Noah in the photo. Wöhler brings the radioactive waste back to the power plant. Alexander has the waste covered in concrete where it stays until a little bit later. On June 22nd, Clausen and Charlotte re-interview Regina. During that, she tells them about older Jonas, about him staying at the hotel, gives them all the papers that were in the hotel room. Older Jonas shows Hannah the time machine, and he ends up taking her back to 1987. 2 days later, on June 24th, middle Claudia, the one from 1986, actually arrives and learns that Regina has cancer. After that, she goes to the power plant looking for herself, we think, but she learns that Alexander is actually now running it. Claudia goes to the library after that and looks herself up on Google. She learns about her own disappearance in 1987, and after that, she returns. Charlotte calls in sick, doesn't go to work, and then she goes through all the time travel files that she has, everything that's at Tannhaus's shop. Older Jonas finds Hannah's gun. Right after that, Hannah has Charlotte come over to meet Jonas. Charlotte shows him the picture of Noah from 1921, and he tells them about the traveler, Sic Mundus. Charlotte takes Hannah and Jonas to the bunker and shows them all the files that she's collected, where she now has them up on the wall. Peter explains that older Claudia told them everything to do. We see that the notebook's there. They decide to tell Katerina, so Charlotte goes and picks her up and brings her to the bunker. They explain the whole situation, but Katerina doesn't believe them. Katerina goes back to the school though, looks up the records for Mikkel, and she finds the picture where she sees Mikkel in the class photo and finally believes everything. Magnus, Martha, Franziska, and younger Elizabeth go to the caves where they run into Bartaj. They end up leaving him there, tied up. They take the machine from him, but they're not sure what it is. We see Clausen and Voller interview Alexander, and we learn that he's asking all these questions about his past, not really about the missing people right now. Because she's with the other people, Hannah also misses her interview appointment with Clausen. On June 25th, older Jonas goes to Martha's bedroom and leaves the St. Christopher necklace for her. Hannah tells Katerina about older Jonas's time machine, and we see Clausen finally interview Hannah. He ends up showing her a drawing of older, stranger-aged Jonas. The kids all go back into the caves to get answers from Bartas, and finally, when they're leaving, he tells them it's a time machine. To show them how it works, he takes them to 1987. At the bunker, older Jonas tells Charlotte about Noah and how Claudia was using them all to further her own agenda. Noah comes to meet Charlotte. He tells her that he's her father and that he plans on killing Adam so that everyone, not just the ones that are going to be in the bunker, will survive the coming apocalypse. And we see the gang all return back from 1987 after they did their time travel. After that, Marta returns to her room and she finds the necklace that older Jonas left there for her. On June 26, Hannah steals older Jonas's time machine and leaves for 1954. Charlotte tells Peter about Noah and the coming apocalypse. Clausen arrests Alexander for identity theft. Clausen reveals that his brother Alexander Kohler disappeared in 1986, and that's whose identity Alexander stole. Clausen said he found out that he had to go to Winden because someone had sent him a letter. Marta meets older Jonas. He tells her who he really is. Katerina shows up after that and reveals that Jonas is her nephew because Mikkel and Michael were the same person, and Katerina takes Marta away. He tells them that Hannah took the time machine, but Marta says that Magnus has a time machine as well. Magnus then brings the time machine to Marta and Katerina. On June 27th, Bartas tells Regina that Claudia isn't dead and visited last fall. He gives her the photo of her and Claudia from 1986. Older Jonas tells Marta that she needs to go to the bunker because he can't watch her die again. She refuses, so he pulls the gun and he forces her into the bunker. Katerina finds the map of the cave and the flashlight in Jonas's room. Younger Jonas and middle Claudia arrive from 1987. He tells Claudia to bring the time machine to the bunker. Claudia leaves and goes and gets Regina and takes her with her to the bunker. Younger Noah arrives from 1921, and he gives older Jonas a letter from Marta saying he must save Bartaj, Magnus, Franziska, and Noah so that Martha will live and the prophecy will be fulfilled. Waller tells Charlotte about helping Alexander bury the radioactive waste at the power plant, and Charlotte then tells him everything that's going on. Clausen gets a search warrant for the power plant and insists on checking the old reactor room when they pass it. Peter takes younger Elizabeth into the bunker. Marta leaves the bunker and returns to the Kahnwald house where she finds younger Jonas. They end up having a kiss. Adam then arrives from 1921. He ends up killing Marta to ensure that younger Jonas will eventually turn into him. Katerina heads into the caves and she opens up the passage. Clausen discovers the barrels under the concrete and orders them open, despite Charlotte protesting that they shouldn't do that. In that process, the God particle is created and a wormhole between 2020 and 2053 opens up, allowing Charlotte to make contact with older Elizabeth. Older Jonas finds Bartas, Magnus, and Franziska and uses the time machine to take them away. We don't know which year, but we know they made it out of there. And back at the Kahnwald house, alternate Martha or otherworld Martha arrives and uses a new time-traveling device to save young Jonas, take him to safety, and potentially to an alternate universe. That is the last thing we see in 2020. We go to 2052 at the end of season 1. We see younger Jonas arrive after touching Helga in the wormhole, and we see Celia take him into custody. That's really the only thing we see in 2052 for sure. There is this scene of Claudia outside whenever the event is happening that would put that in 2052 if she was in the future, but we can't say for sure. It looks similar, but we can't say for sure. In 2053, we see that Jonas has been there for a while. He's doing stuff. He's trying to figure out how to get out of there. We see him in the bunker, which we saw Claudia in with Ringwall with the photos. We see him moving through town. As far as dates go, on June 21st, we know that Elizabeth executes the 2 Frenchmen for entering the dead zone. On that same day, younger Jonas discovers the God particle is still in the power plant ruins. On the next day, he's caught going back into the dead zone and is sentenced to death by older Elizabeth. He needed to get that fuel, he gets it, takes it inside, and then he gets caught. On that same day, he's hanged, but older Elizabeth ends up shooting the rope and he doesn't actually die. They lock him up, then later Celia breaks him out, asks him who he is, demands that he show her what's actually going on inside the dead zone. He takes her, shows her the God particle, he prepares it for travel, and then he goes through the portal. Later on, we see her leave and older Elizabeth catches her and asks her what she's doing. They have a confrontation. Later on June 27th, this is the date that the prophecy says that the passage will open up and everyone will be led into paradise. We see older Elizabeth dig up a box of her personal belongings, things that she had hidden that she's kept from the past. And then we see her go into the power plant. The wormhole opens. She makes contact with Charlotte, who is her mother and also her daughter, and we don't know what happens after that. That would be everything we see in the current timeline. So yeah, that is everything that we see in chronological order. While it's a ton of stuff, there's obviously a lot of stuff left out that we're not going to be able to find out about until season 3. And it's a really interesting show. The deeper that they go, the more you realize that there's all these bootstrap paradoxes that affect each other. When I was doing this video this time, I was wondering if she could have actually even killed Jonas. I mean, she really couldn't have, right? Because he's existed at an older age. So when she shoots the rope, he actually was never going to die anyway, sort of in the way that Helga didn't die when Ulrich bashed him in the head with a rock so many times. Let me know in the comments what you think about the timeline, what you think about Dark in general, what you want to see in season 3, anything that's on your mind about Dark. But that's all I got for today. I will be doing some other Dark videos in the next coming days, so make sure you subscribe. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, guys. I will talk to you soon.